Good evening, everyone. I'm Rita Bacuzzi, and welcome to Breakthrough the Taboo Talk, where tonight we are going to have our week 3 episode with Michelle Molitor from Nectar Consulting. And we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome and how does that relate to our value system and our worthiness? I mean, what does it mean when we talk about our worthiness? And a lot of times when I have really deep conversations with my clients, especially when we're having conversations around money. And for example, a client of mine was sharing how, and I've seen my own kids do this, they will get paid paychecks and they will receive checks of money and they won't cash them. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Why wouldn't somebody cash a check? That's money. Some of us might think that's just absolutely crazy, but that is an external viewpoint of what somebody's manifesting within them, a lot of times about worthiness. And they don't know how to have the discussion because a lot of times it hurts too much to go to that point to have the conversation. So a lot of times we're getting through these conversations one-on-one, which is really awesome for many people to be able to do, so that this way they can think about it, come to the realization of whether that is true or not. We get to offer up some of that, I'm going to say evaluating ourselves, but in a non-critical way of like, what's the possibility of it being something of feeling non-deserving or non-worthy, and where does that all come from? And a lot of times we find it can be tied to our core values in life. And these are things that we just talk about all the time. It's not commonplace to just say, hey, what are my core values? Let me go back to home base. What's within me, and why would I be behaving or saying things to myself? Could it possibly be that they're not aligned? There's something out of alignment until I get to put it there in the right process, in the right way, that allows me and gives me permission to say, hey, I am worthy. I am deserving. And Michelle Molitor is an expert in rapid transformational therapy. How excited that when we have these feelings and these situations where, somebody said, money's always flying from me. I get it. I receive it. And it is flowing through me faster almost than I can make it. I get promoted. I'm earning double my income and I still don't have any money. Where's it all going? And again, it's another, I'm going to say it, taboo talk that we get to have with ourselves. It's that inner conversation so that this way we can remove the emotional blocks that are creating that and rapidly rewire our brain. And if you're kind of wondering, what am I all talking about? Well, we're on week 3, and Michelle and I are going to discuss a little bit today about imposter syndrome. And that dreaded imposter syndrome. What is it anyways? What does that mean? And how are we depleting our sense of value and worthiness, which is creating that trip up and stifling not only our personal growth, but a lot of times our financial growth. So it is with great pleasure this evening that I invite my dear friend Michelle Molitor into the room. Hi, Michelle. Welcome.
Hey, Miss Rita. So happy to be here with you. Thanks for having me back on the show. Week
Thank you.
3.
I know,
So
gosh,
much to talk about.
so much to talk about. I'm going to say, it's so funny that we're doing this topic tonight. And literally, those experiences that I'm sharing, I've had within 24 hours with probably 3 different clients. And I'm like, wow, isn't it pretty amazing that this is a top topic that really most isn't recognized. I think that people aren't aware unless they've been looking and schooled in the arena of personal development or mindset development, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We don't know what we don't know about our own beliefs around money until something becomes so painful that we're forced to try and see it to make a change, right?
Yeah,
Um, and you suddenly run out of money, or as you said a minute ago, it's coming in but it's flowing right back out again. And until you become conscious to that effect, um, most people don't really look at it. They don't really go, I'm at the center of this equation. What do I need to change? Right? I'm always looking at that for myself. Like if something's not going the way I want it to or like it to, I'm like, okay, who am I being in this equation that's having this go in some other way than I would like it to go? Right? So when it comes to um, your own sense of self worth and self value, it's very, very helpful to pause and go, well, what am I making up about myself, about my worthiness, about being enough, about being able to provide value such that I'm worthy of deserving this flow that is coming to me and sticking, right? It
yeah,
comes in and it stays. I mean, the thing to remember is that money, just like everything, is energy, right? We're all made of energy. Every little thing, microphone, the computer, the lights, everything is made of energy when you boil it all down. And so if you look at it that way, then money's always available to us, but
yeah,
it's, are you allowing it and are you receiving it, right?
yeah,
And it's those beliefs that we have about money that either creates that flow or blocks that flow.
yes,
And so, the one of the things we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks is this idea of not being good enough, feeling like a fraud, feeling like an imposter. And when those emotions get kicked up, it can sound like, well, what if I don't have all the answers? Maybe I don't deserve to have this position or to earn this much money. Um, you know, I've got the wool pulled over their eyes. They think I'm smarter, better, faster than I actually am, or um, am I as good as my counterparts in this role, right? So there's all these different beliefs that we hold about ourselves, which very easily fall under the umbrella of imposter syndrome, right? That are getting in the way of us receiving that flow and allowing ourselves to hold on to it, right?
yeah.
To have that flow come in and stick in our savings account, right? Versus the in and out. Now there's always going to be an in and an out flow, right? Just like
Sure.
breathing, we breathe in, we're receiving oxygen, and
Yeah,
we're breathing out. You can't just keep breathing in all the time. You got to let go at some point, right? So
yeah,
you want an in and an outflow of money, just as you do oxygen.
sure.
But you also want to have in your reserves, right? You want to be able to create that. And so looking at the beliefs that you're holding about yourself and 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 your beliefs around money is a huge topic. You and I deal with this both. We just look at it through different lenses, right?
Yeah,
Um, so, folks might be asking, well, what is imposter syndrome exactly, and why is it getting in the way of me feeling worthy or allowing abundance into my life? So, technically, it's a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, and accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud, despite the external evidence of their competence.
mm,
And so, this is something that happens to both men and women.
Yep.
And we've all experienced it at some point in our lives. As much as I would like to say we can cure imposter syndrome once and for all, it's anytime you start pushing past the edges of your comfort zone to try new things,
Mhm.
that voice of imposter syndrome can very quickly rear its little head, right? Hey, whoa, what are you doing? Right? So the good thing is, I want everybody who's listening and watching to know you're not alone. I promise. Right? And there is a lot of things that we can do to help mitigate those feelings, quiet that voice of self doubt that is creating the bugs and the blocks and preventing us from allowing that flow into our lives, right? So
Absolutely.
let's talk a little bit about maybe some of the triggers, Rita,
Mhm.
because I think
Mhm.
these are really important for folks to identify as they look across the landscape of their own lives. Where might that be getting triggered? So there's a couple favorite places, right? There's always our family, right? Our family of origin. So
Mhm.
as kids, as young adults, you anywhere along your lifeline, you might have had an overly critical adult, a family member, a sibling, even a teacher, right?
Yes.
That was always pushing you, and even the A wasn't good enough, right? I've heard
Right.
so many clients say, "Yeah, I would bring home the all A's, and my mom or my dad will go, well, why isn't it an A plus?" And you're
Right.
like, oh, right? So I'm not good enough. There we go again, right? There's another very popular version that comes through social pressures, right? We have different social groups that we belong to that are based on some conditional acceptance or approval, right?
Yeah.
Do I fit in? Because ultimately, what I know is that as human beings, we all want to be seen and heard, loved and accepted
Right.
for who
Mhm.
we are, right? So if you're not feeling seen and heard, loved and accepted in your own family of origin, which is very common, we turn to outside sources, right? That's why, sadly, gangs have become so prevalent because
Mhm.
it's a place to
Acceptance.
belong, even
Mhm.
though it's in a twisted negative kind of way. And that's
Yeah.
just an
Yep.
extreme example, right? But you have sororities, you have fraternities, you have all sorts of different clubs that people belong to. And when those clubs have benchmarks, right, that can create that imposter syndrome as well. Um, a major place where this gets spawned is just a sense of belonging, right? Um, if there's any time in your lifetime when you've been made to feel different or excluded from a group, whether that's because of your language, your ethnicity, your gender, your economic status, your religion, your physical or learning disabilities, any of that can fuel fears and doubts and trigger imposter syndrome. And once that sense of not belonging is captured in your subconscious thinking, right?
Mhm.
Your this back part of your brain, as I like to think about it, right? Then that belief is held there, and it becomes the filters in which you see the world, right? Until you recognize those disempowering beliefs and behaviors and you consciously change them.
Yeah.
It's a really important thing. So, those are some of the big ones. You've got, your own disposition. If you're super anxious kind of person because of your life experiences, that tends to want to create those kind of negative beliefs. Or even things like societal norms. For example, there's a lot of uh, industries that are more male dominated. We'll look at technology because I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area, right?
Yep.
There's some gender bias that happens, right? Both explicit and subtle forms that can create a need to be perfect, which can create imposter syndrome. Um, or even career challenges and changes. If you've if you're suddenly moving into a new job, right? You were good at your old job, you got hired, promoted, you went to a new place, and suddenly you've got a new bar that you've got to meet, right? And
Yeah.
that can create a whole host of worry, fear, and anxiety. So those are just some of the most common triggers for people around what creates this self-doubt, this fear, this anxiety. And if you let it run rampant, it'll really run you over if you're not
Yep.
careful, right?
Mm.
So and that's those beliefs, that perspective, those filters that you're seeing the world, they can very easily then prevent you from speaking up, right? Asking
Mhm.
for the raise, asking for the promotion, asking to be equitably paid next to
Yeah.
a colleague, right? It might discourage you from taking credit for the hard work that you've done on something, or it might inhibit you from seeking new opportunities to elevate your success because you might think, well, who am I? Right? I'm
Yeah.
not that good. It's very typical, and research shows this, that women in particular, they won't apply for a new job unless they can check all the boxes, right? Yes, I
Yes.
can do that. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. Whereas men, again, this is research backed, men will be like, I got a few of the boxes checked, but I'm going to say I can do it anyway because I'll just
You go
figure
for
it
it.
out, right?
Yep.
And that's all based in confidence, right? So it's a really interesting dynamic, and how imposter syndrome shows up differently for men and women, right? It's something I'm really fascinated by, and there'll be another article that comes out about that at some point soon, I'm sure. So, but all of these things have an impact on how we see ourselves and our own self worth,
Right.
which then has a major impact and ripple effect on our financial well being, right? What
Mhm.
we're allowing ourselves to have financially, and how much we're allowing ourselves to keep, right? It's fascinating, I think.
It is fascinating. And so, where would you say, specifically related to feelings of imposter syndrome, would be some anchoring core values that might counteract that, like create a shift in focus, if you will, like an anchoring. So for me, when I think of my own core values of, love first. So if I'm having these feelings of imposter syndrome, right, like, am I worthy? Am I deserving? Well, I might be asking a question of myself of, am I really being loving to myself? Like, would I say what I'm saying to myself? Like, would I say that to another friend or a family member? Are there any specific values that help us to counteract that imposter syndrome that we could hold on to, kind of like love in our own, I'm going to say, in our own wheelhouse of core values that we can hold? Because I find that changes, right? There can be top five, but it depends where you're showing up. Because when I'm showing up in maybe a meeting and we're talking about collaborating, well, I think about, I'm going to say, not so much love, but my faith in trusting, right? That the other person, so it's a faith based core values at the top. And which is aligned with trust. And then the second value would be integrity, right?
Mm,
Are these
yeah.
people of integrity? Because I know I'm going to show up in integrity. So if I show up in integrity, then I'm not being that imposter. So that might be one example, but I was wondering, are there specific value systems that we can hold to ourselves, or words that might anchor us to shift us out of not feeling unworthy, undeserving specifically?
Well, that's a really great question, Rita. First and foremost, I think it's important, if you haven't already stopped and looked at what are your core values,
Mhm.
right? Sorry, there's some piece of hair on my face that's driving me bananas. Get out of there. Anyway, it was tickling my nose. Um, So really looking at your own core values,
Hmm.
right? What are the core drivers? What are the things that are like water and air to you that you can't live without? Clearly one of yours is love, one is family, right?
Hmm.
And those become the stake in the ground for how you're going to make decisions. How far off course are you willing to go in order to achieve X, Y, or Z? Because what
Hmm.
I found is when the work that we're doing is too far out of alignment with our actual core values, it creates a disconnect, right? It
Hmm.
starts to create that dis-ease, which then can then turn a disease into our bodies, right? Creating a whole host of illnesses if we're not careful. So the more clear you are about your core values, then the easier it is to use them as your true north, so to speak,
Ah, I like that. I like
right?
that. Hmm.
Yeah, and so then as you're move, let's say you're moving into a new job, right? First, is that job in alignment with your core values? And if it is, and you're believing in yourself and trusting in yourself, and they've hired you, then you can say to yourself, well, they believed in me enough to give me the job, to hire me, then I should believe enough in me too.
Yeah.
Right. So it's no, the other part of that is noticing what are the internal conversations that you're having with yourself, and then how do you want to flip the script on them? Because if they are not serving you, if they were bringing you down, pulling your energy down, then what would you like to say to yourself instead? Right? That will lift you up, that will align with your values and move you forward powerfully into the world. Because as you do that, again, back to the energetics of this, as you do that, you're actually raising your vibration, right?
Yeah.
Because you're happier, you're more peaceful, you're more calm, you're more excited, energized, and all of those emotions vibrate at a higher frequency. So then
Yeah.
now you throw in the law of attraction in there, and you start pulling towards you all the best people, opportunities, and circumstances that are vibrating at this higher frequency. So all of that said is focus on where you want to be and where you want to go. And if the internal dialogue that you're having with yourself is not serving you, then erase and
Hmm.
rewrite it. Right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's one of my favorite things to do is to help people rewrite, rewire their limiting beliefs with more empowering beliefs. And when you do that at a subconscious level, right, you're literally building new neural pathways in your brain to support your success. And then once you've done that rewiring, holy moly, Batman, look out, because things start to change really quickly and it's really fun to watch.
Awesome. And how rapidly can rapid rewiring work around imposter syndrome specifically?
Well, I work with folks in as little as 30 days, right?
Wow.
And that's over a couple of sessions that we have. We have, four sessions together, and we literally do the deep dive work to get at the root causes of those limiting beliefs. We rewrite and rewire them at a subconscious level, and then we put new plans and strategies and ideas in place for like this amplified growth. And it's amazing to watch people, because I've been a coach for 20 years, and I used to have 6 to 12 month coaching engagements, and now I work myself out of a job really quickly. So 30 to 90 days, you can create a whole host of change for yourself
But you
if
get
you're
to help
willing to
more
do.
people. And there's so many
Yes.
people out there. I was listening uh, as I go through my own personal self-development and how to show up in the world and how to be a leader and start with leading myself. Um, is sometimes when we're not showing up in the world, really someone else is missing out because you have had the experience that you get to share. But if we're holding that share in because we're feeling like it's not, we're not worthy, we're not holding ourselves high to say, of course it's me. I got the experience to be able to share so that someone else can learn and grow from it. And also creates, I think, great connectivity. I recently had a meeting, and this happens to me actually often enough. I'm going to say often enough where it might be in a meeting and the connection is so core connected that we'll both be literally crying in the meeting, going because it becomes such an emotional charge of the level of connection and the alignment of what's going on. And I think that comes from a freedom of, I'm just being open. And if I just be open and I'm not worried about acceptance, I'm
Right.
not self-criticizing, I've now let go of that imposter syndrome speaking to me, saying, hey, it's not you. And instead saying, but of course it's me. Of course it's me. And say to myself, just how can I share in a way that's authentic, true, and genuine to myself? And if that other person on the other end is not receiving, be okay with that other person is not the person meant for you. And when you do find the right ones, it is like magic, right? It's kind of like when you find, and I'm going to say, well, it's been 31 years. It's, for me, meeting my husband, but it was like magic when I met him. And I literally, I remember walking with my cousin at that time, we were in Italy, saying, I almost feel like if I had already lived in Italy, I would have already been married to him. It was that
Wow.
aligned. So, this happens in relationships. This happens in business relationships. And when we can get through that feeling, the faster, the better. And then we are all showing up. So that's kind of like a rising tide raises all ships. When you're getting to more of the masses in this teaching of the rapid rewiring around imposter syndrome. Well, we have about a minute or so left. Were there any tips? Actually, I'm going to make sure to put up here. You had shared 12 tips to taming your imposter syndrome on LinkedIn. So 12 tools to taming imposter syndrome. And they can get those tips on your LinkedIn, or they can go to www.michellemolitor.com and reach out to you. Is there any one quick tip that you wanted to leave our audience with?
I would just say believe in yourself, my friends. Believe in yourself. And even if you don't believe it, fake it till you make it. Like look in the mirror every morning. I believe in you. I see you and I love you. I believe in you. I see you and I love you. And the more you do that, the more you will believe it and will land at a much deeper level. And you'll find a beauty of love and compassion for yourself, which just will have you radiate and shine out into the world and do the work that you're here to do. And we look forward to seeing that.
I love that tip. And I'm going to share one of the things that helped me fake it till I made it is I borrowed somebody else's confidence about me and asked them
Mm,
what they saw in me as confidence. And I used their words when I didn't know the words to do. So,
I
if you're
love
out,
that.
yes. So I borrowed the confidence until I had my own. And I appreciate you sharing yours so that this way our viewers could borrow your confidence about the love and success that they are all destined to have. And I know we're out of time tonight. Come check us out next week at 5 p.m., same time, same location. And we're going to talk about stage 4, taming that inner critic. Oh boy, you don't want to miss that one. All right. Love you all. And we'll see you soon. Ciao for now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.